Okay, today we will be talking about how to use Kahoot as a bell ringer or a chapter assessment or even an exit ticket.
Go back to there. Go
Here.
Okay, you should be gone. Okay.
Okay. To start off, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Lisa Atkinson, Naaman Forest High School, Computer Science and Game Programming and Design. And then my moderator today is Clint L. Sasser, Teacher, Instructional Technology at South Garland High School. You probably wonder, what is Kahoot? Well, as you can see from this slide, Kahoot is where over 30 million empowered educators or captivated learners connect in real time to create a social, fun, and game-based learning space. Kahoot is a lot of fun. As a teacher, you create your own questions that you would like to use as a bell ringer to start off a lesson, for example. You will create an account in Kahoot. It's really easy and it's also free. So once you're into Kahoot, you will create your questions and then you have a choice of 4 answer choices. And then you move on to the next question. You can use as many or as few questions as you want. You probably ask, why would you use Kahoot? Well, as teachers, we always want to implement the best practices because we like to know that something has proven to work. Here's what we know about Kahoot. EdTech for Free says that Kahooted is awesome engagement tool, and it is. The kids love it. It's competitive. The kids get psyched about it because they do. They like to get on there and they compete with each other. And all of us have a competitive bone in our body, right? Teaching with technology, the kids go crazy for it. Kahoot's a game-based, it's instant feedback for any assessment. Like I said, whether it be a bell ringer or a chapter assessment, or even Clint had this great idea when we met a few weeks ago to have an exit ticket. I would have never thought about that. When you create your Kahoot and you've already, entered your questions and entered your answer choices, and then you're ready to complete your game, when you get to class that day, you just share with your students. There will be a class pin that the students will enter, and it will show you how many students have entered to play in that game as they enter. If there's 1, 2, let's say you've got 20 students, if only 18 show up that they've entered into the game, you know that you're missing 2. They can use nicknames, but keep that down to a minimum, and just make sure that you're aware of which student is using which nickname. After each question is answered, okay, after question, I'll rephrase that. After the students have answered the first question, then you get to choose the amount of time when that answer is revealed, the correct answer is revealed. Once that happens, it will show you how many students have answered the question correctly and how many have not. At that point, that's a good reteaching. Let's say if you had 15 students out of 20 get that question wrong, you know to yourself, okay, I need to go back and I need to reteach this. Or if it's a bell ringer and let's say you've created this Kahoot for prior knowledge so that you can move on to another lesson, well, you know what you need to work on at that point, because it tells you how many students are prepared for this lesson and how many students are not. Once you have that, you move on to the next question, and then the same thing. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that your students will not see the answer choices on their phone or on their device. They will have to be looking at the projector, and there'll be the answer choices there. But then there's a circle, a square, a triangle, and then that's how they remember which one to select. It's in correlation with whatever you tell them. Answer choice number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that may not make sense right now, but we're going to get through this webinar as quickly as possible. Okay, so we've already gone through why you would want to use Kahoot, because we know that it works. It's been proven to work, and there are many got it? Okay, so next, here's what Kahoot looks like. You've got your players, you've got your researcher, you've got your creator, which is you and the teacher, you've got your leaders, and you've got your learners. Okay, so Kahoot as a bell ringer. Assess your students on their homework. For example, I like to call it a DYRT. Did you read that? So you would open your class with a DYRT Kahoot, and you would ask them questions about the reading assignment the night before. This is what the answer choices the answer results would look like. On this one, you've got two students who are enrolled in the game. 2 students got it right, and none of the other students did. So you know, okay, they're doing pretty good. I probably don't need to go back and reteach that particular assignment. Okay, Kahoot as an assessment, it's a great thing to do. What did we learn? You ask yourself that. What concept do we need to work on? And are we ready to move on to the next assignment? Kahoot is a great way to create a fun learning game in minutes, or choose from millions ready to play or adapt. There are games already on there that you could use for your subject. 0 setup time, no player accounts required, 1 click, and it's game on. Okay, like I said, students love to play with their devices, and they're very competitive, and this shows them it. Actually, after they answer the question, if everyone has answered the question at the end, and it shows you how many answered correctly, how many answered incorrectly, but then it also keeps tabs of who is on top, who's in first place, who's in second place. The kids love that. It makes them excited about learning and excited about your subject, your content, and they like to know that, hey, they may know a little bit more than this student, but maybe a little less from this student, okay? It fosters a social learning and deepens the learning impact. It connects and plays in real time with others in over 180 plus countries. So what's not to love about that? Okay, so you're wondering, how do you create a relevant Kahoot? First of all, I would say do some research and planning up front, especially if you want it to be a bell ringer. If it's a bell ringer, it's probably an assignment homework that you had them do the day before or the night before, or even something that they learned in class. I know on an A-B block schedule, we see them every other day. So maybe you want to go in and you want to refresh your students on what was their takeaway from the last time you met with them. What did they learn? What did they remember? Okay? Without a doubt, the best way to make sure that your Kahoot has the right impact on learners is to do a bit of planning. Planning as teachers, we always know, is the best practice, because if we come in and we're not prepared, our students probably know that. Aside from researching the questions and answers, here are some things you might want to think about. Now, these are just some ideas so that you can create that Kahoot for your bell ringer, an assessment, or, like we said, even an exit ticket. Okay? Why are you making the Kahoot? Make sure that you think about that ahead of time, because you want it to have some relevant meaning. You want it to be meaningful. What do you hope the outcome will be? What do you want your takeaway to be from your students, okay? What do the learners already know? Well, you're going to ask those questions in the beginning of your Kahoot, or even a Kahoot prior to an assessment. You want to know what those students know and what their prior knowledge is. How much you make it accessible to all types of learners, that's one thing you might want to think about, because we're trying to reach everybody in our classroom. Let's don't leave anyone behind, no child left behind. How might you give everyone who plays this game a chance to feel success? Because you throw in those questions, yes, those, we want our students to use those critical thinking skills, and we want them to be creative. But at the same time, we don't want our students to feel beat down. Give them some of those questions where they feel like, okay, I've learned something, because as soon as they feel like they've learned something and they're not at the bottom every single time that the Kahoot slide comes up, that they're at the very bottom, at the very bottom, at the very bottom, and it shows that they're never winning, that's not what you want. They'll be turned off from the process, and you probably won't get anything from them for the rest of the day. So I would say throw in all levels of questions, okay? From hard to medium to very not easy, but just those things that maybe you've drilled in their heads that you know that all of your students know. Can you use the answer from this question as a natural segue to the next, or even as a clue for a later question? Yes, always. Are you intending to open it up to the public? That's completely up to you. Now, for your Kahoot, ask great questions like we talked about before, very meaningful questions. Now you've done some research, it's time to think about the specific questions and answers. Look at the best Kahoots, and you'll see that there's tremendous value, not in just asking questions, but in asking the right questions. We can ask questions that are very, I don't know, right, something that everybody should know, but you want to ask those questions that cause your students to want to think beyond that and move to the next question where you're just building on maybe one skill. So start at the bottom, at the foundation of that skill, and then build up. See how far our students can really grow their creativity, especially in that one content area. Recap on what they've already learned. I say this over and over and over again. It's a big score for our kids. It's a big win. When you have really drilled them on something that a foundation of a skill that you want them to what am I trying to say? To be successful with, and to just really, I've lost my words, but I will find them. If you have a skill that you want your students to build on and be successful with, go back and recap that so that they can feel like they've won, even if it's just going over the same concept over and over and over again. As long as they know that, as long as they have one win, they'll feel good about it. Have multiple correct answers, sparking discussion or debate. Let your students talk about it, okay? Prompt learners to recognize and fill in the gaps of their own knowledge. If one student feels like they're falling short in one area, maybe the next time when you group your students in small group instruction, maybe you group that one student that didn't have as much knowledge about one skill with one of the students who was really successful and was really succeeding at one, and put them together and see how they can collaborate to be successful together. Once again, let's make our questions very, very relevant. Make sure your Kahoot holds all the answers. One of the things our top Kahooters love best about creating and learning games is thinking up the right, wrong answers. I know that sounds crazy, and making sure there's enough time on the clock for learners to work out the answer. So in other words, when you're putting thought into these questions, make sure that your answers, that you've really thought about these answers before you just throw them out there. Are the incorrect answers plausible? That's another thing to think about. You don't want to leave loose ends for students where they feel like, could it be all, could it be one? But make sure that there are some of those critical thinking skills in your game so that the students have the takeaway that you want them to have. Okay, can you use the answer from any of the questions to create other questions later? Of course. Get creative with high impact images and videos. You can add images. Students love pictures. They love images, love color. We all do. We learn from that. Add images. Sorry, there was a little feedback there. I can hear myself. Okay, images can make a world of difference in learning. Use multiple images instead of just one. You want your students to be involved with what they're learning and make it fun, make it almost as though they're not really sure that they're learning. So if you add some fun things to your Kahoot, you never know what your students might take away from it. Hide some clues in the images. You want to ask questions about the image, ask questions about the image. Take learners on a journey. When we say that, and I think I've said it a few times throughout this presentation, get your students involved in what they're learning. And if you have pictures or you have graphs, definitely show that, because so many of us are visual learners. And by that, I don't mean just reading a question or an answer choice, because that, I don't know, not a lot of creativity in that. How about using a Kahoot as an exit ticket? We talked about that. Let your students communicate what they've learned that day. Maybe they'll leave more confident. Maybe they'll learn something from another student. It's always fun to do. And the great thing about this is you can save all of these responses of your students and how many answers did they get right, how many answers did they get wrong. You can save those assessments and those bell ringers, but also an exit ticket. Make them excited about wanting to learn something. Prove to you that they've learned something about that lesson so that they can leave. And you're probably wondering, how do I get started on my Kahoot? Well, it's very simple. You go to kahootit.com and you, I put a link in here. Let's see if it's going to work. There is a how to create games within the Kahootit website. It's getting started with Kahoot. And basically it's, I want to say about 7 pages of just ideas, how to find a game. When I was talking about how before the screen would look on the students' devices, it will show you that through that link. It's a neat research tool to have. So to create your Kahootit, you would go to creat.kahootit. I don't know if this is showing up as I'm going. It is? Okay. It didn't look like it is. It's just taking a minute. So I did put these links within this PowerPoint so that it would be easy access for anyone. Okay. Over here. Okay. So I'll just log in mine. Okay, so that's what it would look like when you log in. I created an account for myself this summer when I was a presenter at Icon. And during my presentation, I had a Kahootit game within my presentation. And all the teachers wanted to know, what was that tool you used? What was that? What was Kahootit? And that wasn't even what I was presenting on. So it was interesting. So that's why I have an account. So you can go into quiz. Let's say you wanted to create a quiz. Let's title it, how about game programming? Unit 1. How's that? Unit 1. Okay, so you put in a description. How to create online games. And let's say I wanted this to be a bell ringer, right? I want it to be visible to everyone. Okay. Audience. Let's just say school. Okay, got it. Okay, go. I won't add an image right now. So let's say I have one question. What program do we use in game programming? Game programming. Okay, so answer 1. Let's say just Hoot. Okay, game maker. Or let's say all of the above. Okay, now I'm going to mark the correct answer and then I say next. Okay, so there's my first question. Now I'm going to say this, or I know there is just one question. We're going to say play it. We're going to click on play it, I mean, and we'll always be classic. Okay, classic, and then ready to join, and then the students will have to put in this PIN number to play the game. It's 224279. So I don't have any players because, so I guess it's not going to let me start it either. But if I had players, the sound, the game would keep playing that sound, but then it would show up how many players I have with their nicknames and all that good stuff. Okay. So it also allows you, it has a discussion mode. You could type in your title, who you want to see it. It's the same thing. And you notice where it says you want to add an image. I think this is really good, especially if for anybody, but let's just say a history teacher, and you had questions about a map. Okay, as a history teacher, you might think I can't use Kahoot, especially if I want to use a map as a question. Well, you could always add your image. You just drag and drop right there, and then it will show up into your Kahoot. So we're going to get out of that. Now I'm going to go back to the Getting Started guide. Okay, if you have any questions about Kahoot, the Getting Started guide, or anything about it, this guide will help you create your Kahoot, how to use it as an assessment. And I really like the idea of the bell ringer and the exit ticket, because sometimes, especially on Mondays, your kids come in, they're not very excited about learning, and this starts your day off on a positive. The kids get excited about it, and they get to use their devices, and they also get to answer questions and compete on a Monday. And you'll see it's step by step, which I know this isn't a how-to, but what I like about this is it will explain to you why it's so important to use this type game to engage our students, but not just engage them, but it prompts them to collaborate with each other and to share with each other, and just to get that competitiveness going amongst your students. I hope all of you will use Kahoot soon, and if you have any questions about it, please go back to the Kahoot program guide and look up any question that you might have, and it'll tell you if you're ready for more or if you need a hand or anything that you need. If you have any questions, I think you can ask them. Right? Yes, and we'll answer them. Clint is ready. And if you would like this presentation, this PowerPoint presentation if you would like for us to share it with you, we'll be glad to share it with you. It helps with Kahoot. It helps the step-by-step how to create a game, why to create a game, and why your kids would enjoy the learning process if you included Kahoot into your daily practices. Okay, we had a question where to access the Kahoot program guide. Okay, go on to Kahoot it, and when you search for it, one of your options will be Files, getakahoot.com Academy, and I have included that in the PowerPoint. So I will share this in the Google's Plus community. And then when you go to this PowerPoint, you can click on the Kahoot Getting Started Guide.
Is there a limit on the number of questions?
No, there's not a limit to the number of questions that you can have. But you did see that there is a limit to your choice, your answer choices. That's just 4. And you can get around that also, but there's not a limit. I would just on a bell ringer or an exit ticket, I would keep it, I wouldn't go above 10, 15, but for an assessment, certainly do include and create as many questions as you need to.
They want your presentation, so we have to figure out.
Okay, I can share it in Google Plus. Clinton, I will download this presentation into Google Plus community.
The address Google Plus community.
Oh, okay. Do we have that? Let's see. I don't have that address.
Is there a way to score the assessment electronically like you can in the classroom?
I know that it saves the assessments, and you can drop that in, right? Yes. Yes, you have to use their real name because it's like, is it linked to Skyward, or is it just you? You can link it to Skyward. I know that you can drop it into your Google Drive and then from there link it to your Skyward. So it is awesome. I have a classroom for the first time this year in about 16 years. So I'm learning that process also. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Clint and I appreciate it. Have a great week. See you later. Go Rangers.